we're going to head back out, go through those river crossings that we came in on. I had a whole lot of water come through the passenger side dash here down onto the footwell. We enter into some very remote country and find ourselves backtracking on some gnarly four-wheel drive tracks in the dark. Arriving at camp at night can be difficult, but it also means that it's harder to visualize the landscape around you. We picked a spot away from other campers and we hoped for the best, and this was what we woke up to.
I make no promises to the quality of the food at the end of this though. This is my first time.
Great camps, big fires, wet and windy weather and flat batteries. We're waking up this morning and what a contrast. But another thing we have noticed is that we're completely out of battery power. Because we've been sitting here for 2 days now, we haven't had any solar input at all. Itself has actually switched it off, which means that the red arc system isn't recognising the second battery at all. So what we're going to have to do. So sit back and enjoy episode 2 of Chasing Adventure. So we've left camp now, which was probably one of perhaps the best campsites that I've ever camped at, particularly in this region. It was just awesome. All to ourselves, nice river crossing, gentle flowing water, awesome sunrise this morning, and we've got another day of perfect blue skies and a nice Pilbara day ahead. So we're going to head back out, go through those river crossings that we came in on, and make our way back to Newman for a quick restock before visiting and exploring some of the east side. The sun low in yet another perfect Pilbara day gave us an awesome backdrop on the drive out. You may remember in the last episode I made this comment. The next 2 crossings were simple and straightforward, with this crossing requiring a tight left-hand turn midway to take the higher tracks. Tom leads us out on the track and shows us how it's navigated. We received very specific information regarding this crossing before we left Newman, and that was to stay out of the centre. Why? Well, because of this. Due to the distance behind Tom and the difficulty in seeing that small track on the approach angle, Graham missed the left-hand turn and plunged into chest-deep water. To put it into perspective, the taillights on that trailer are almost at my chest height. I rushed to the water's edge expecting the need for a quick recovery, but was amazed to see the cruiser and camper pull out the other side. Watching the trailer go through only meant one thing. I had to cross here as well. The Land Cruiser smashed it and pulled up and out of the crossing without any hesitation or difficulty. This being said, it probably wasn't the best idea to come back the same way again to pick up the camera. The second crossing sucking water through the aircon system and a few other areas in the vehicle. Avoiding any mechanical issues though, we pushed on through the remainder of the crossings. crossing was a little bit deeper than I thought, just taking that wrong track there. And what I've noticed is when we went through, I had a whole lot of water come through the passenger side dash here down onto the footwell, and I could also hear the blower of the aircon sort of hit some water there. It's made a bit of a funny sound. But now what I've got is I've got very little aircon coming through the vents, and I had a few other lights flashing as well. So I've been thinking about it on the drive back out to the highway here before we pump our tyres up. And I reckon that the pollen filter in here has been soaked. So I'm going to take all this apart and see if we can get that pollen filter out and see whether that is the issue that we have today. So that's exactly what it is. As soon as I pulled that out, we've got aircon again. Not only is it dirty, but it's soaked with water from that water crossing. So that fan just couldn't bring the air through fast enough. But I tell you what, I'm gonna be glad that we found that out. So I'll let that dry for the day. I'm probably gonna have to buy a new one in Newman, but at least we've got aircon back again. Yes. So I may have got the aircon problem fixed, but we've still got no air compressor. So lucky we have some good friends, eh? That's what friends are for. Back onto the blacktop, and it was time to start heading east into the less visited and more remote eastern Pilbara region. Our first stop, Nullagine. Nullagine is an old gold mining town located at 1,364 kilometres north-northeast of Perth. Gold was first discovered here in 1886, and between 1895 and 1914 the population soared to over 3,000. Moving forward to today, we only have a little over 200 people remaining. We met up with some friends and visited the pub for a refreshment before continuing on. It wasn't long before we were back in the vehicle and driving due east on the appropriately named Skull Springs Road. We were warned about the road's condition. Although only 180 kilometres in length, the sun was saying to expect up to 3 hours to reach our destination of Running Waters. The road starts off like any other Australian outback unsealed road. It was flat, wide, with minor corrugations and very dusty. The further we pushed on, the narrower and windier the road became. It wasn't the corrugations or the surface of the road itself, but the occasional washouts and the windy hilly nature that required slow driving. As we left in mid-afternoon from Nullagine, we watched the sun start to lower, and we knew that we would be pushing a camp set up in daylight tonight. Nevertheless, the aerial footage from the drive was nothing short of breathtaking. We were chasing our shadows when we reached a turn-off to Running Waters. The track, again in fair condition, was narrower and windier than the road, and we watched the sun set as we drove in. The last section of the track is low range, rocky and slow going forward drive track, and we were thankful that we were coming in with a little ambient light remaining. The frequent water crossings and mud made for a slippery entry over the jagged rocks. Yeah, it doesn't get any better. As we entered the pool that is running waters, we quickly discovered that this area was not going to be suitable for all of us to camp in. There was little flat ground on the water's edge, and the sitting water, mud, exposed tree roots and the setting sun gave a very eerie feeling. As the others navigated the trailers in, I pushed on a little further, hoping for an area of flat ground, only to almost get bogged myself. After a group discussion, we made the decision to push on and find somewhere else to camp for the night. The decision was easy, but now we had to find our way out of this enclosed, rough, tight and a little creepy area with 2 trailers in tow. It took some time to maneuver the vehicles and trailers around, and by this time we were losing the last of a day's light. Once the trailers were back on track, it was time to get my cruiser out. Although not towing, it was now very dark. One by one, we crossed the shallow rocky crossings again.
Go around it to the right of me. I would think so. I can't see if it doesn't go around the...
The track out made for a picturesque drive, watching the last of the golden light drop behind the ranges. We made the decision to push forward rather than backtracking, and we discovered that Skull Springs Road did not improve in condition but continued to turn more and more into a four-wheel drive track. A short time later, we were back on the tarmac thanks to nearby mining activity. We took it easy due to the cattle and bird life present on the road, but it sure made for an interesting drive. Another gravel road to arrive at Carawine Gorge. Arriving at camp at night can be difficult, but it also means that it's harder to visualize the landscape around you. We picked a spot away from other campers and we hoped for the best. A quick and easy spaghetti bolognese for dinner, and it wasn't long before we all hit the swags.
No, that'll do for now. I'll come back for another one. Just stick it into gear. Stick it in gear and let her idle. Low range second gear.
And this was what we woke up to. I didn't waste any time making a cup of tea and sitting back to enjoy this amazing landscape as the sun rose to light up the red rocky cliffs. For me, it doesn't get much better than this. I sat in this chair for about 1.5 hours soaking up the serenity, the absolute silence, and just watching. Watching the clouds drift across the sky, the bird life seek out their morning meals, and the fish making the most of the perfectly still water. Carawine Gorge was another site we had planned to stay for 2 nights. We relaxed for most of the day and Tom and I headed out to the other side of the river for a little explore around the base of the cliffs. The squared off rocks and the cliffs are a harsh landscape and the spinifex and trees grow from whatever soil is in or on the crevices. We found another cave within the cliff walls filled with skeletons of all sorts of mammals and reptiles that roam the area. We discovered this flat grassy area which could be an ideal camping area if there was better vehicle access. This land upon private property is just another hidden gem within the much less visited area of the eastern Pilbara, and somewhere I'll definitely return with the family. We headed back to camp, gathered the chainsaws and went to get tonight's firewood from washed up trees and branches from the last flood. A bit of a battle between the petrol and electric saws. With enough firewood to power a steam train, we returned to camp to get ready for a night by the fire. Another day done and dusted, and it's been a bit of a weird one today. It's just been a sit around camp, having a chat, having a bit of a relax, and just an easygoing day to break up those long driving days and that late night at camp last night. But as you can see behind me, the weather started to roll in a little bit. It's not raining, it's not too windy at the moment, but the clouds have come in, it's a bit overcast. So it's been nice just to chill out, catch up with some time, get a few things done, and ready for another day on the road tomorrow. But for the time being, we've got a big fire cooking up over there. We're going to get a nice big roast and some chips on the way, and looking forward to a nice night by the campfire before getting back on the road tomorrow and having a look at what else this east region of the Pilbara has to offer. So we've got everyone helping out with dinner tonight. We've got 2 big pork roasts on the way, and we're using some recipes from Fire to Fork, is that right?
Yes, Fire to Fork.
Yep.
In this new personally signed book.
Yeah, we're going a whole lot of YouTube collaborations here with the 4-wheeling shirt and the Fire to Fork recipe book, but we'll make sure we get some Exploring Oz merch on there soon enough. But otherwise, we've got a nice hot camp oven over there, a hot fire going in the background, and we should have a pretty awesome meal being served up in a little while.
I'm keen, very keen. I make no promises to the quality of the food at the end of this though. This is my first time doing it. We'll see how we go.
Oh, well, everyone's busy. I might just go grab a beer and sit back and wait my turn.
Why not?
So I thought while dinner's being prepared for us, very fortunately, I thought I'd quickly go through the setup in the back of the cruiser as we're set up for just 2 of us travelling, my dad and myself, on this 3-week Pilbara trip. So you can see here, I've got my swag down on the side of the car, like it nice and close to the car, just for a bit of protection. Moving on to the rear of the vehicle, we've got plenty of bench space just for the 2 of us. We've got the bench that folds out from underneath the drawer system, and also the tailgate from the 200 series Land Cruiser. We're running a couple of dual fuel liquid fuel stoves for this trip, and I'm giving them a really good test over 3 weeks to see how they're going to go long term. So far, so good. Obviously we've got the Waco CFX 65, and that's just designated just for most of our food items for this trip. And then moving into the back of the vehicle, so we've got our heavy storage items up the back, so water, beer and all that sort of thing at the back. Our pantry boxes would normally go in this space here, and we're just using the Frontrunner Wolfpack Pros, which are those boxes there, and that holds most of our pantry gear. During the day, like we are camped today, between drives, we are using this area as a bit of a charging area. So we've got the Blue Eddy charging at the moment, bringing in 72 watt from the car charger. As you can probably note, not much solar action going on today with the overcast weather, but the car and the new lithium battery in the engine bay is handling that really well. Moving around the side, we've obviously got the bin bag on the back, which comes in handy for making sure we take all of our rubbish out of our camps with us. And we've got the Emu Wing as well. Now I've put a new seal on the Emu Wing kit, which seems to be holding up quite well on some of these very dusty roads. So far, no dust is evident inside, and I'm using it to store a lot of my electronics and camera equipment, so very happy so far. We've also taken out part of the rear seats as well, and we've put in a 40-litre angle. This is just to help with some of our drink storage. So we've got things like Coke, water and beer all stacked up in here, just a designated drinks fridge, because it frees up a whole lot of room in that CFX 65. And then we've just got clothing items. So I've got all my clothing items on this side and all my dad's clothing items on the other side. On the roof rack is where we keep most of our camping gear. So we've got the new Chaos box just up here, and a lot of my dad's sleeping equipment, the tent, the sleeping gear and his mattress all go up there. And I've obviously got the crash pad swag, which is mounted to the other side of the roof rack and simply tied down, working out very well so far.
I'll stick a 1.5 cups in and let's get it on the fire. That's a little warm, righto. What's the time? We'll see how we go. It says 3 hours, so let's get it on.
Enough water?
Yep. Put in extra water.
Okay, on she goes. Just there.
Thank you.
4 hours and quite a few beers later, we had the perfect pulled pork, slow cooked chips and salad, followed by a sticky date pudding and ice cream. I think we're getting used to roughing it in the outback. Well, waking up this morning and what a contrast. We've got wet and windy weather this morning, blowing everything around and putting moisture over all of our gear. So we've just had a little bit more rainfall just fall down. Nothing major, nothing that's going to affect the tracks on the way out this morning, but still enough to make everything damp before we pack it away, which is a little bit frustrating. We still made the effort to cook up some bacon and eggs this morning, which was great. But another thing we have noticed is that we're completely out of battery power. Because we've been sitting here for 2 days now, we haven't had any solar input at all, and we've been charging some things like the Blue Eddy power station. We've got 2 fridges running and a bunch of other camera and electrical equipment. We have run the lithium 120X battery down in the vehicle. So what that means is that we've had to use the Blue Eddy to power the fridge this morning just to get it back down to temperature, and we're going to have to go start the vehicle to get that alternator charged before we can charge and use any of our other accessories. But it does sort of show and demonstrate the importance of having backup plans as well. Things like my water tank, which I can't access through the pump now, I've got a backup underneath where I can manually open up that valve and still get water out. But nonetheless, it's still going to be a great day. Hopefully the weather passes today, or at least tomorrow anyway, and we'll move on with our trip. Now, because the lithium has a battery management system in it and it has gone down to 0, the battery management itself has actually switched it off, which means that the red arc system isn't recognising the second battery at all. So what we're going to have to do is just put a little bit of charge into this secondary battery, get that voltage up, the red arc will pick it up, and then we can start charging that secondary battery. But something that's important to consider if you're running at lithium, if it does go completely flat, it's not going to restart when the engine started. There we go, just like that. The battery's back on again. The red arm's picked it up. It's got charge coming across. That lithium auxiliary. We timed it well, and we were mostly packed up when the light rain set in. Luckily, nothing too heavy. This had no effect on the track conditions in the area. Coming up next time on Chasing Adventure, we visit Australia's hottest town. So that's what happens when you come following me down some 4-wheel drive tracks. The other guys followed me down too, and now we've got 2 more stuck cruisers. You changed gears out right at the wrong time.
I know, rookie error.
We find an oasis in the desert. We've made it down to Old Corunna Station now, and we're actually at a location of an old World War II secret airbase. We're going to go for a quick explore around and check out some of the old relics, the aircraft hangars and the runways and taxiways. This is the first week on the road, and we finally got Dad in the kitchen. I'm staying well away, but there's a lot of history out here. There's a lot of old building footings, some old relics. We are expecting a lot of rain to come in the next few days. The weather forecast is saying up to 60 mil tomorrow. It's going to close those roads off. We climb to new heights and set our sights on more amazing locations. storms are approaching and the tracks are getting wet. Next time on Exploring Oz.